All right, guys. So we're reading chapter 22. In the last chapter, Nina was questioning where these ID cards. My hair's a little crazy right now. ID cards came from, and so in chapter 22, let's go ahead and read. Aaliyah and Nina had reached the driveway to Harlow School for Girls before Aaliyah deemed it safe to talk. Is that your school over there? Aaliyah asked quietly when they rounded a bend in the road. Nina stared out at the expanse of grass and the imposing three-story brick building. The school had no windows. That had seemed so natural from the inside, when Nina wasn't used to seeing out windows anyhow. But from the outside, the lack of windows looks odd, as if the building were supposed to be a monument or a memorial, not any place that people could live. That's it, Nina said, and the woods are behind the school. She pointed. Aaliyah nodded and detoured around the school, skulking behind bushes and shrubs. What about Percy Matthias and our food? Nina didn't want to seem more concerned about her food sack than the two boys, but it was hard not to be, with her stomach growling. They'll find us, Aaliyah said confidently. A few minutes later, they entered the coolness of the woods. Aaliyah sat down on a stump, and Nina sank onto the ground beside her. She took off her boots and rubbed her sore feet. How far do you think we walked? Nina asked. Couple of miles, Aaliyah said. How do we how do you know how to get here? How did you know how to get here? There aren't many roads in use anymore, Aaliyah said. Percy thought this would be the right way. She looked around the woods and said cheerfully, This is a nice place. I guess, Nina said doubtfully. She watched a spider climb into her boot. Were spiders poisonous? Would she survive the population police prison, a near drowning, and a long escape only to die of a spider bite? Aaliyah reached over and shook the spider out of Nina's boot. The spider scampered away. Thanks, Nina muttered. She wondered if she'd ever get used to being outdoors. It didn't seem natural not to have four walls around her, a ceiling above her head, and a solid floor beneath her feet. Jason had always teased the kids who were scared of the woods. No, no, she chided herself. Don't think about Jason ever again. Still, the woods were unpleasant enough now, and the warm sunshine. What would they be like when it was raining or when the winter came? Aaliyah obviously didn't care. She began whistling, sounding as carefree as a bird. Her whistle evidently tricked birds too, because one called back to her, tweet tweet, in answer to her tweet tweet tweet. And then Nina realized it wasn't another bird, but Percy Matthias. They stepped up quietly behind her. Safe? Aaliyah asked. Safe, Matthias answered. The boys sat down beside Nina as if they all agreed ahead of time. Percy opened the food bag and handed out what seemed to be a feast, a box of cereal, a box of raisins, and an apple for everyone. Nina didn't object. Matthias raised his apple like he was making a toast. To our new home, he said. To roughing it, Percy said. To Nina's idea, Aaliyah said. Nina looked from face to face, then raised her own apple and said, To my new friends, getting us here safely. Eating required full concentration. Chewing and swallowing was such a joy that no one spoke until they were down to the cores of their apples, picking out the last bits of flesh from among the seeds. Then Nina said that she worked out during her long, silent walk with Aaliyah. The three of you are used to roughing it, she said. I don't know where you lived before you were arrested, but it was outdoors. And I don't know how, but you make fake IDs for third children. That's what Percy and Matthias went to get last night when we were running away, when you brought back the flashlight. Nina waited while the other three exchanged glances. Aaliyah nodded, ever so slightly at the other two. Yes, Percy said softly, you're right. Why didn't you tell me we had IDs? Nina asked. We could have gone somewhere else if we didn't have to hide. Somewhere with walls and a roof and a floor. Where? Matthias asked. IDs aren't food. They aren't rent money. They aren't adults to answer nosy questions from the government. ID cards are just pieces of plastic. Nina shrugged. Before she was arrested, she never liked for food or shelter or adult care. All she ever missed was a legal identity. She tried a different tact. I could have given everything away when the population police saw me, she said, since I didn't know you made an ID card for me. I was about to scream and run, and they would have known. You thought those guys were population policemen? Percy asked incredulously. Population police would have known to look for runaways. Those guys were just local cops, minor league. They probably hate the population police as much as we do. Nina tried to absorb the news. But, look, the population police wouldn't tell anyone else that someone had escaped from their prison. It'd be like a blow to their pride. They like everyone to think they're invincible, impossible to beat. So it's just population policemen looking for us. And if they ask the local cops won't tell them about seeing two girls on the northbound road of the city. That's why we're safe, Matthias said. Nina wondered how he could have sounded so sure. We lived in the streets before, Aaliyah said softly. In the city, we know how things work. Nina tried to imagine it. No wonder the other three had always looked so grubby. But how had they imagined it? How had they gotten food? How had they avoided being arrested years ago? Who took care of you? Nina asked. God took care of us, Aaliyah said. We prayed to him and he took care of us, just like we prayed in prison and he sent us you to get us out. Nina had heard of God before. Gran, for one, had prayed back home, even though Auntie Lystra made fun of her for it. That's one thing that the government's right about, Auntie Lystra had said. If there were a God out there who really cared about us, do you think we'd be living like this? This seemed to encompass everything from the leaky roofs to the weevils in the floor to the long line at the store for cabbage. You believe what you want to believe, and I believe what I want to believe, Gran always answered. I, for one, see a few miracles around here. Nina had liked the way Gran's eyes rested on her when she said that. Even when Nina was too tiny to understand the word miracle, she liked it. Like the way Gran talked about God. But she didn't understand how God could take care of three little kids alone in the streets. I'm thirsty, Percy announced, with a warning glance toward Aaliyah. Let's go find some water and explore a little. The other three scrambled. Nina pulled her boot back on and followed, thinking hard. They hadn't told her everything after all, and so she hadn't said a word about her past either.